Hi investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with some news about what's happening in contemporary insurance investigation in Australia. As a result of the Hayne Royal Commission, the three biggest insurers in Australia have come out this year and demanded of every investigation agency out there that supplies investigative services to them that there is going to be a need to comply with some new things as far as training and as far as the work operations go. So what they're going to hit every investigation agency in Australia with are about training in dealing with vulnerable people, and also about training in fraud, and also about privacy and the security of things like statements, information collected, documents, CCTV, that sort of thing. So they're the three biggest areas that are going to become important to who you work for in the investigation industry in Australia soon. So you're going to see investigation agencies implementing and undertaking their own internal investigation programs, which is something that they do all the time anyway, but they've got to be able to demonstrate that to the three biggest insurers to secure their work contracts for themselves and ultimately work for you, the investigator. So I thought today we'd just look at a couple of areas that are important. So the first one's fraud. Now, they don't want you alleging fraud without speaking to the insurance company first. Now, that has been best practice for the last 30 years, and I don't think any individual investigators ever alleged fraud and got away with it without running it past their employer, their claims manager, that sort of thing first. And that's what they want you to do. So first of all, let's have a look at what fraud is. So fraud is basically a lie told to gain a benefit, chattel, or advantage. So that's basically what fraud is in very simplistic terms. Each state will have a different definition. In Victoria, they'll add by deception on the end of that. And if you want to get the police to cooperate with you on anything in Victoria in relation to insurance investigation fraud, always make sure you put by deception at the end of every sentence, and their ears will prick up and they'll run with it. But it's a lie told to gain a benefit, chattel, or advantage. What's a chattel? Well, a chattel is a tangible, removable property. So it could be a couch, could be a television set, it could be 5 cows, it could be anything. So that's what a chattel is. So, if you've gone for your bank loan to buy 5 cows and you've lied about your income and you get the loan, then you've committed fraud. So just keep that in mind. An advantage, well, people get advantages by committing fraud. There's a great classic example, one in Australia of recent times. An executive from Myer, Mr. Andrew Flanagan, he faked his CV and he scored a $400,000 a year job and was put in charge of Myer's business development. The only issue was he didn't have the skills that he'd lied about on his CV. So Myer found this out rather quickly, that this person was not capable of this job. And they actually took that fraud where he lied on his CV and got the job. They took that to court and followed through on it. You can Google Andrew Flanagan at Myer Executive, and you can find out what he was charged with at the end of that if you want to know. So when it comes down to fraud, internally at the investigation agency, there are going to be systems put in place to, once it's been identified, how it's approached, and it will be done in coordination with how the insurer wants it. And that has always been the case. So that will continue and nothing's changed. There will be a complication of the mix of vulnerable people in with that. And vulnerable people are people such as people who they may have a depression, They could have stress or a psychological injury. They could be victims of domestic violence. They could be a person that's just lost everything in the bushfires, and they have no home, they have no clothing, they have no job. So these what you know, and that person has no support, and they're vulnerable people. So how you go about dealing with vulnerable people is going to become, in your interactions, is going to become very important now to the insurers, and they're going to have internal training on that. In Victoria, for WorkSafe, they have that with the Suicide Assist program already for the people who are investigators, licensed investigators in Victoria, undertaking psychological injury claims down there. But this is going to extend not just through factual investigation, it's going to go to surveillance investigation as well. So you're going to have training internally for vulnerable people and your interactions with them, and what responses you must do in relation to certain aspects of that. So this is all coming up in 2020, and you will find that there will be people that may not want to undertake that internal training, or organisations that can't arrange it. Well, they won't have contracts with the three biggest insurers in Australia anymore. That's just the way it goes. These things change constantly. Everything changes in any business out there. Nothing stays the same, and these are the requirements that they're having as a result of the Hayne inquiry. So this is a heads up to the first one. I'm going to go more in depth in that later on. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy, and thanks for watching this short presentation.